Lave. Sheesh, what page are we on? Lave. Alright, Lamed Beis, we're on page Lave. Okay. Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph in Maseches Beitsa. And Shabbatai remembers that Rashi mentioned Beitsa in the Mishnah. She said that's how this potter takes his clay in a Beitsa form. That's what Shabbatai remembered in this Mishnah more than anything else a few days ago.
Very confusing.
Until we finally we ironed it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a Mishnah which is essentially saying you take a piece of clay and you carve it out, you just made a kli. Who else in the world would say that? Says Rav Yosef, I have two candidates. I have Rabbi Meir, that he said when he was arguing with Rabbi Yoshua, that if you take a kli cheres and you do what to it? You just carve it out. It's a kli. But Rabbi Yoshua says, no, you have to first put it in the oven, right? To dry it up, to firm it up, whatever. But Rabbi Meir says, you don't need that. So just carving it out is enough. That would meet our standards of our Mishnah, because the Mishnah says such a thing. Don't carve it out, because you're making a new kli. Carving it out makes it a new kli. The next option is that maybe the second version of Rabbi Yosef says he was offering Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Tzadok as the possible author of our Mishnah. He also seems to say that carving something out makes it into a kli.
Yeah.
Although he didn't say it explicitly, he said it implicitly. Right? It's a diuk in what he said. He said to his Tanakama, a flat plate is not makabel tuma. Sorry. And he said there's a reason, because you haven't finished it yet. Finish it, and it'll be makabel tuma. What's called finishing? Carving it out. Right? Once it has at least a concave surface, like a normal plate, right? Like these plates over here even, right? Then it will have a din of a kli, according to Rabbi Elazar bar and it will be makabel tuma. Until then, not.
Let's go to the bathroom.
So turn off the camera, please.
Yeah.
Okay. It's possible Rabbi London, turn off the camera. It's possible Rabbi London will come to. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah.
There's a new Tana Rabbanan. Should we start that?
Yeah.
About 10 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabbanan.
Right. Should I read it?
Go ahead.
תנא רבנן, ואין פותחים את הנר, ואין עושים אלפסים וכרוניות ביום טוב. So the rabbis taught that we're not to make a ner, we're not to make a kli.
No, it doesn't say that.
A ner.
No,
And
it
not-
says pochasim,
Not to hollow out a ner.
the clay.
The clay.
That's right, to make it into a nair.
And you're not to make those simple plates on Yom Tov.
Even the flat plates.
Yeah.
Which till now we were saying they're lacking carving out. So it's almost like saying don't
Don't do this.
make a
don't do that.
receptacle, and don't even make something that doesn't have a receptacle.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be in that respect like our previous Gemora, where we said our Mishnah would never agree to that. Because according to our Mishnah, we were saying you need to carve it out to make it into a kli. If you just had an ilfus, it wouldn't be a kli. According to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, but only according to the Tanakhama. So now it's looking like we're going like the Tanakhama. It's a very big, strange combination here.
Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Matir. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel allowed.
What does he allow?
Permitted.
No, you have to read two more words.
Matir.
Ilfasin. He allows what? The Ilfasin Choranios.
Yeah.
These plates from the villagers.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think he's saying?
He's saying, the Rabbi Tzadok, that these are not complete. The work's not complete, they're not vessels.
Till you carve them out, they're not complete.
Right.
So if all you did was make a flat piece of clay, it would be mutter.
Right.
Why would it be mutter? Because I didn't
Carve it out.
make a kli.
Yeah.
I didn't make a kli. If you need to carve something out to make it a kli, then if I make something that's not carved out, I haven't made a kli. If I haven't made a kli, I should be able to do it on Yom Tov. That's the supposition. Right? What did our Mishnah say? Don't do the carving out because it makes it into a kli. But if I don't make something into a kli, it's mutter to do. Sounds like it's mutter to do something if it doesn't make it into a kli.
Right.
So that's what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel seems to say, and you're saying it sounds very much like we said before in the name of Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok.
Right.
So then who would be the Tanakhama here? Would it be the same Tanakhama we had before? In Idius?
No.
Would it be the Tanakhama of Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok?
What do you think about that?
What do you think, Surli?
What's the question one more time?
Whatever you heard. Let me hear what you heard. I want to hear what you heard.
Could you read the laws about the Tana video? Somebody is.
The new Beitsa. Are you aware that there's a Tanakhama in the new Beitsa?
Yes, the laws about Tana.
No. Doesn't mention Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok in our new Beitsa.
Yes,
Do you know there's a new Beitsa that we just read?
First audience, yeah.
I'm sorry? Were you with us when we read it?
No, almost.
Alright, well, we need you with
I
us.
think he's saying
I need
neither
Sruli to read it
Lapid
first.
nor-
Just
yeah.
1 second.
All
Just
right,
1 second.
Sure.
Sruli,
Yeah, sure.
can you identify where the new Beitsa is that we just read, that you weren't with us when we read it, but we did just read it? Do you know where it is?
It's not first in Haran. The mission idiots, right?
No, sir. We just read a Tanu Rabbanan. A new part of the Gemora that we haven't seen yet. We started a new little section called Tanu Rabbanan. Why don't you go around and have Shabbatai show you so you can find it. Oh, good.
One say, I put in Samer.
Okay.
One cannot
Hollow out
clean.
the clay
Right.
to
I
make
see.
it into a container for the shaman. Okay.
I seen our fasting Haronius.
What else can't you do?
One cannot make fasting Haronius is regular simple plates and out of.
Okay. And we said before, simple because they are.
Because they're carved out.
So we call that in English flat.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Tanakhama is saying there's two things you can't do on Yom Tov. Is that like our Mishnah?
Yeah.
No. Our Mishnah only mentioned one of these two things. Can't be pochus in there. Doesn't mention Ilfusin Kuranios, right? Does our Mishnah mention that?
No.
Our Mishnah here in Beitsa? No. So it's a little bit different than our Mishnah. Do you know why he's not letting you make Ilfasin Karanius on Yom Tov?
Nope.
Why would you think it's usher to do something on Yom Tov?
So you're making a clean.
Making a kli. So that means that whoever's speaking, whatever his name is, he's holding that what? Making an Ilfas Karanius is called
A clean.
making a kli. Even though it's just flat, has no receptacle. Okay? That sounds a lot like, where have we seen someone say that before? In Maseches Edius. Are you able to concentrate today, or are you just too scrambled?
Just so I don't reflect. I'm just trying to push myself. It's one of those days, the tough days.
Well, it's the last day of the Zman, so if there's any day you're going to push yourself, today's a good day to do it. Because there's only 20 minutes left in the Zman, 20 minutes of
I'm going to try
either
my best.
time that is spent wisely learning or time that's spent daydreaming.
Why do I feel like I'm getting hard?
Hmm? It's only tough because she gets into your head. She's been destroying your learning for the last hour. That's how powerful this woman is. You should just banish her from your mind right now. You know what it says in the Torah? Adam kiyamus k'ba'ora. You know what that means? When a man dies in a tent, what happens? The whole tent fills up with tuma, right? But it starts out, you know how it starts out? Last week, you know how it starts out? Parshas Para. We read it in shuls.
Yeah.
Zos chukas haTorah. This is the law of Torah. You know what the Gemora learns from that?
What?
Ein Adam lomed el imei misatzmo aleha, unless he kills himself over the Torah. How do you kill yourself? Take a knife and go. No. You make as if you're dead. You know what happens when you're dead? Your life doesn't bother you anymore. Nothing bothers a dead person. He's all free from all concerns. So that's what the Gemora is saying. If you want to really learn, you have to free your mind from all other concerns. Your wife is not here, right? Nothing is there to bother you. Then you'll be able to learn. If your mind's all full of 100 things, which are not here, by the way. I can see they're not here. But in your mind, these are all here. All these things are here. Your wife is here. Everything's here. So somehow you brought her in. Brought her into this room. Right? But you have to imagine when I'm dead. She won't be with me then. She might live 20 years later, more than you, right? Then you'll be in Kever and she'll be running around making someone else nervous. So, wouldn't the best thing be right now, while you're learning, you act like that?
Turn the camera off.
Let's learn. Let's learn.
Yeah. Sometimes you talk
That's
things
how the only
out.
way we can learn is if we banish all the other thoughts from our
Sometimes
mind.
you talk things out. Let's get rid of them. That's how it.
Just think Torah. That's all I want is Torah. That's one thing when you're in the house and you hear her speaking, it's hard to concentrate. But she's not here. So why should you let her be here
Yeah.
if she's not even really here? So the new Tana Rabbana makes sense to you?
Yeah.
What's it saying?
You cannot open up
No, not opening, not
close
poseach.
I always get confused with this.
No, that's because your mind sees the letters as the opposite order, poseach, but it's not, it's pochet.
Boichsim.
Okay, from the word pochet, pachat, pachot. To make it less, in this case making something less means carving it out.
Yeah.
That we saw in our Mishnah, so that's not a Chiddush. What's the Chiddush of this Beitsa? It says you're not only allowed not to do that, but you're not even allowed to what?
And you know how to make regular, simple plates.
These flat plates.
Yeah.
Even though they don't have a receptacle. So we see the Tanakama here is holding that even making a flat plate is usher because that must be called making a kli. It's very much like the Tanakama that we saw in Edius, right? Who said it's Makabel Tumas Hazav at that point. We said, how could it be Makabel Tumas Hazav unless it's a kli? Oh, he must hold it, it's a kli before you carve it out. Okay?
Yeah. Feel much better now.
Good.
But I feel it's important also to talk things out as opposed to
100%. But sometimes you should have to say, I'm going to deal with it later, but right now there's no reason to think about it.
I would have to go in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Tonight's the penultimate, and there'll be a million people there tonight.
All right. So let's just continue on. So we basically have a machlokas here in the Beitsa, whether everyone agrees you're not allowed to carve out a nair. That's easy because certainly if you carve something out, you make it into a kli. Everyone agreed on that. But the question is, the ilfas haranios, before you carve it out and still a flat piece of clay, will it have a din of a kli? According to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, no. That's why he lets you do it on Yom Tov, because it's not called making a kli, because it's not yet carved out. And that would be exactly like Rabbi Lozer bar Beitsa we saw in the Mishnah in Edios. And therefore that would fit into our Mishnah. That's why I never mentioned it in our Mishnah, because it's mutter. The Mishnah only mentioned things that are asr. Okay, let's go on. My charanios.
That's why we have mentioned with Yeshiva, all this is about it.
And if you look at the Mishnah, it's only talking about things you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do this on Yom Tov, not allowed to do that on Yom Tov. So it doesn't have to say that what you are allowed to do. And you're allowed to make an ilfas. It doesn't have to say that. Okay, but now we understand the reason. Because if you're not making a receptacle, then it's not making a kli. It's like we said before. Our Mishnah and Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lozer Rabbi Tzadok, and now we have Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel to add to the list. All these rabbis hold that carving something out makes it into a kli, and before you carve it out, it's not a kli. So if you manage to make something without carving out a receptacle, then you're allowed to do that on Yom Tov. This would be a good trick question on Shabbos. Are you allowed to make are you allowed to make a plate on Yom Tov? Yes, you're allowed. If you make sure it doesn't have a receptacle. And like you said, it depends. Not according to the Tanakama of in Edius, or not into the Tanakama here either. According to these other Rebbeim, you would be. That'd be a good question also. How do we paskin? Theoretically, a Tanakama could represent the Chachamim. Maybe we pass like the Chachamim over and above these other individuals. I don't know. Okay, let's continue on.
So the Gemora says, "My Choranios." Ask the question, what is Choranios?
Now, ilfas we know is a plate.
Ilfas, yeah.
Charanios we said is basically like a villager who lives out of not in a big town, in a smaller town. Okay, so let's see how it explains it here. That was Rashi before. Let's see how the Gemora explains it.
Amar Rav Yehuda, Choranios, Eronios.
Right.
Not Choranios, Eronios.
People live in an ear,
Yeah.
right? Like Rashi said, they b'nei ayarot and not b'nei krachim gedolim. They do live in a city, but not necessarily what we would call a city, right? What was it called in a city in those days, but not a huge metropolis. So we called it a rural town, but whatever. Okay. But then the Gemara doesn't even understand what that is. What is that? What are my Iranians? What are these people who live in cities? What does that mean? It's very ambiguous.
Amar
Abaye.
Tzei Chak Le.
Chakliyasa.
Yes.
Right, from the word chak. I guess the chaklaim. You know what the chaklayut, chak, right, is agricultural.
Oh.
Right? Chaklaut is agriculture. I don't know if that's how it's being used here, but it does match up a little bit of what we said before, that these are people who live in more rural places. Places that are less elaborate.
What's the word? Tzei?
No, that's not the normal. Tzi'i, we normally say tzi'i means to go out. But that's with an aleph. This is with an ayin, so I'm not sure what this word is. Let's see if Rashi talks about this word. There's no Rashi on that. Just a second. Not sure what that word is. Sorry, I'm not sure what that word is. Right, maybe it'll be explanatory. Let's try to go on.
Okay, ואין עושים פחמים.
Pechamim. It seems like this is part of the Beitsa, but if you say this is part of the Beitsa, it's similar to the style that we had in the previous Beitsa. We're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do that, now we're saying another thing. Oh, no, this was in our Mishnah, right? This is actually a quote from our Mishnah.
Yeah, okay.
So there should have been like 2 dots, really. And like we finished one section on the first part of the Mishnah where it says Ein po chasina samer. Now we're starting the second part of the Mishnah where it says Ein osim pechamim. Okay, so this is going back to the Mishnah.
I do want to make charcoal.
Okay, it says the Gemora.
That's obvious.
It's simple that we shouldn't be able to do that because it's some kind of a kli. To make charcoal is a kind of a kli. Like Rashi actually said in the Mishnah, because people who refine gold will use it. Remember, Rashi made a whole thing of this. It's a kli because people use it in the process of refining gold. Okay, let's go on. The Gemora says,
Lama chazi.
Lamai chazi.
What's its use?
For what is it useful?
Dan Rabbi.
Rabbi Chia.
Yeah.
Rabbi Chia was sort of on the borderline of all the Amoraim, but he was still officially a Tana, so he had the ability to learn things as a Beitsa.
לא מצריכה אלה למוסרים לעולים. I'm not sure. We only have.
We're in the Gemora. Sorry.
We only need it for something. I'm not sure.
Now, needing means it's a chiddush, right? We said before it's pshita.
Yeah.
So the answer to that is no. It's necessary to teach this halacha, right? In other words, the Gemora asked a question. Of course, you can't make charcoal. Charcoal is like a kli that you use it for things. To Rashi said in the Mishnah to purify gold, etc. They use these coals, these charcoals. So with this, to answer up the question of why it was not so simple, and we definitely needed to speak about it, is to say, you're right, in a normal situation I wouldn't need to tell you that it's asur, because obviously a normal charcoal is a kli, the way Rosh explained in the Mishnah. So why did the Mishnah have to tell you then? What is the chiddush? It's a specific case is going to end up being a chiddush. The normal case will not be a chiddush. It's like admitting to that. But you say the other case is a chiddush. Which case is it? So that you say it in an Eino Ella type of thing. Lo nitzrcha Ella. It's only necessary to teach me this chiddush that making pechamim is a kli, not for the normal situation, but lemosran. Right? That means limsor otan to. What's limsor?
Limsor is tradition.
Well, that's what a tradition is. That you give over to the next generation all of the tradition that you received from your father. That's how tradition works. That's why Masor is called, that's why Masor is the word that's used. But the real word Moser means to give over. To transfer over from one person to another. And that's how tradition works. So you transfer from one person to the next. Yeah, that we need a Rashi for. But to give it over to an Olairin, sounds like a plural. So Rashi says, who are these people? The chame chami.
Clay.
I don't know if it's the word clay. Where do you see the word clay?
Chame is heat, right? Chame is...
Well, chamin comes from the word cham, which means heat, but also chamin can mean hot water, cholent, right? Anything which is like a plural subject becomes hot, like a boiling pot of water. Called mayim chamin. But also cholent is called chamin by some Israelis in modern Hebrew. So some kind of michame chamin, people who heat up, let's say, hot water. Okay, and what do? They also do it, I guess, for drinking and also merchatzos, for
Washing.
bathhouses. Bathhouses are merchatz. Right? Rochetz means to wash, but a merchatz is like a place where you do that, which is like a bathhouse of old. That's where people didn't have indoor plumbing, so they went every Erev Shabbos to a bathhouse. But there were probably mikvahs, but there's also a place to take a proper bath. So people have to heat up water for those things. So people who are trying to heat up the water for maybe drinking and also for the bathhouses, that would be a chiddush, to call that asur. Rashi says, "Ba'al gav."
Even though
Mm-hmm.
the Netzorech not of pain was
Even though these guys are making charcoal for the sake of a Yom Tov need, right? Taking a hot bath is called a Yom Tov need, or drinking hot water is called it's like Ochel Nefesh, right? So that's what we discussed in the Mishnah, I think, as well. Rashi said two things. It's normally used for people who refine gold, so perhaps that's where the Gemora said, Rashi was setting up for the Pshita. It's Pshita that's usher to make charcoal for some guy who wants to just refine gold. My neighbor is a guy who refines gold, so I'll make a little pechamim to give him. Obviously, that Gemora said Pshita, that's usher on Yom Tov. Not even for the sake of Yom Tov. But the Gemora said no. But to give it to someone who's going to use it to heat up hot water for drinking or for the bathhouse, which is a Yom Tov need, that is a chiddush. That's why the Mishnah had to tell you can't do it, even though it is going to end up being a tzorech for Yom Tov, because we said it's too far removed from the actual tzorech of Yom Tov. It's not just taking the wood and putting it in. Please, thank you so much.
Rabbi, thank you very much.
All right.
Wonderful.
now?
Do you want to continue for a few minutes, or do you want to?
Sorry, I have to rush off.
Okay.
Let's go to 20 past and go to the
So please.